It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. I'm on mama. I'm on my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Rain and J's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global but it got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, and thank you for making this show part of your daily routine, whatever it is that you're doing right now. I want to thank you for watching on YouTube, for listening to the podcast, whatever it is, however you decide. Thank you very much. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Boston Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, and I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars that is now available everywhere books are sold, and signed copies are available on my website, johnkaralis.com, for $30. Today, continuing the Bradley Beal discussion, because there's a lot of talk out there about should the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal or not. And so what I'm going to do here is make the case for and make the case against. I'm going to start with the case against right away because I am against it. But I will look at the other side in the second segment and look at the reasons why maybe someone would say you should trade for Jaylen Brown. And in the third segment, why just waiting and trying to sign Bradley Beal as a free agent is really not going to work. They could technically do it. That's not a scenario that you want to root for. So I want to start this show by reminding you that this Thursday, I am going to be hosting a live draft show that is available on our streaming Locked On NBA YouTube page, on Amazon Fire Stick, on Roku, basically everywhere things get streamed for us. This is going to be available. It's me, it's Chad Ford, and it's Rafael Barlow. Obviously, Chad Ford's one of the best ever to do draft coverage, and Rafael Barlow is basically an up-and-coming superstar, and he's one of the hosts of the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. So I am honored to be hosting a show this Thursday starting at 7 p.m., starting an hour before the draft, taking you through the entire draft and a little bit afterwards. So it's going to be a full night of unparalleled coverage that you get on demand, and it's going to include all of our local hosts, all of our local experts giving you in-depth analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. It's all brought to you by Built Bar, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so honored and thrilled to be hosting that show. So please tune in. All right, let's talk about Jaylen Brown a little bit here. There's all of this Bradley Beal stuff seems to be coming to a head. And I talked yesterday about where this rumor might have come from. Maybe Bradley Beal is putting out the feelers just so people can kind of see, what's it look like? What's the reaction going to look like if I want to make this decision? Maybe he wants to see that. Maybe the Washington Wizards are trying to put a little pressure on him to say, hey, man, if you're going to make this deal, if you want us to make this deal, do it now. Like, okay, we get it. It's been 9 years, 10 years. You don't want to screw us over. You've been loyal. So do us a solid here and let us get in on this 2021 draft that has a lot of potential for us. And okay, I can see that. So let's say he says, you know what, guys, I can't. I wanted Sam Cassell. You didn't give me Sam Cassell. You gave me Wes Unseld Jr. Great. Congratulations for you. He can start over. He can start fresh. I'm not going to be a part of it. Now the bidding war starts. And this is where the Celtics find themselves. If you don't include Jaylen Brown, there's only one way to get him, and that's by Bradley Beal flat out demanding a trade only to Boston and saying, I'm only going there, trade me there. And if you trade me anywhere else, I'm not going to re-sign. Basically, I'm out. Basically doing what Anthony Davis did to the New Orleans Pelicans and the signals that he sent, not even signals, the flat out message, I'm not re-signing in Boston. If Bradley Beal says, I'm not re-signing in Golden State, I'm not re-signing in Philadelphia, I'm not re-signing in, I don't know, Portland, wherever they might be interested, he can say, well, I'm not going to resign there. I'm only going to resign in Boston, and all those other teams are going to be like, hey, I'm out. I'm not going to give you a package that you're looking for. So if he does that, then the Celtics now are in business because you put a package together around Marcus Smart and a bunch of picks and the young players, Aaron Nesmith and whomever, however you need to do, make it work. But the Celtics can put a package there. It's not a great package. They can be outbid. And this is why Jaylen Brown gets into this discussion, because the Celtics can be outbid by a lot of teams. Pascal Siakam in the 4th overall pick is going to outbid the Celtics Marcus Smart trade package, even if they throw 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps at Washington. That's just Siakam helps them now. The 4th overall pick could be, anybody, could be Jalen Suggs, could be, a real important player. This is a 5 or 6 person draft here. So the Wizards could get their star of the future in this draft while still maintaining the now with Siakam. So do you throw in Jaylen Brown? What are you outbidding here? So my argument right now is you don't throw in Jaylen Brown, because let's start with this. That if you include Jaylen Brown, you're basically saying, here's the best player available to any of you. Out of all of the deals, this is the deal that's going to net you the best player. So you're not getting Jaylen Brown and a bunch of picks and this and that. You're basically getting Jaylen. You're going to get something to make, if you need to make the salaries work, and you probably don't, because Jaylen's making 25.3, Bradley Beal's making 33.7. So maybe you throw in one other person to just make the salaries work. You're not really adding picks or a ton of picks. You can add 1, 2, but that's it. You're not. That's the extent of it. And even that, I'm not sure how many picks you're adding. The thing with Jaylen Brown versus Bradley Beal. Beal opts out of his player option next year and says, okay, you traded for me, now you got to pay me. He's not going to get traded to Boston and then say, hey, I'm going to give you a discount. He's going to opt out of $36.4 million, and he's going to want his full bag, right? Which is going to be 35% of the salary cap, which is going to be over $40 million. And now the question is Bradley Beal at $40 million, and at that point, he'd be, 28, 29? He is 28 now, so he'll be 29 a year from now, right? He turns 29 at the end of June. So we're talking about that following season. 29-year-old Bradley Beal starting a multi-year contract at $40 million versus Jaylen Brown, who is currently 24 years old and will turn 25 in October. So let's say he'll be 26. So it's 29 versus 26, essentially. And Jaylen is still under contract for $27.1 million, 27.2 basically. And then the year after that, $29 million. So you're looking at a $13 million difference in Beal versus Jaylen Brown, and a 3-year-ish difference in age, where Jaylen is just starting to enter his prime, and Beal is starting to slowly exit his. I'm not saying he's out of his prime, but he can see the off-ramp from here, because pretty soon he's going to be 30, 31, 32, and you're looking at Damian Lillard territory. This is where it gets a little complicated because in a vacuum, no money involved, no nothing. Yeah, of course Bradley Beal's a better player than Jaylen Brown. But also, Bradley Beal, unless he steps up his defense and gets back to playing the defense that he used to play, where he was a little bit of an underrated guy, and if he doesn't get back to that, okay, yeah, he's scoring 31 points per game to Jaylen Brown's 24.5. Now, I'm not saying that Jaylen's going to increase his output there, but also is Beal going to keep – how long is Beal going to keep doing this? How much more does he have in the tank? Yeah, he's 29, but soon, again, 30, 31. For the money, what are we looking at here? It's Jason Tatum and Bradley Beal versus Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Is whatever Beal's production, the net production, going to be worth losing Jaylen Brown, paying an extra, $13 million a year or whatever it was? Yeah, $13 million a year. Are you getting an extra $13 million in value in Bradley Beal? No, I don't think so. He's not that much better. He's not that much more of a net positive than Jaylen Brown because Jaylen plays better defense. And who knows what JB is going to be. I think Beal has reached his ceiling. Like, this is the high point of Beal's career. He's not getting better. He's going to stay this good for a year or two and then slowly start to drop off. That's generally how it goes. And so I'm not sold on an extra $13 million plus whatever that means for the luxury tax, which I'm sorry, that means something for the Boston Celtics. The value here, it's not even the price necessarily, it's the value. You're giving up Brown, you're giving up another player who may not even matter that much, but you're giving up a pick or two for, yes, better immediate production, but then what? Does Tatum plus Beal, how much better does Tatum plus Beal make you than Tatum plus Brown? Does it make you so good that Brooklyn's like, oh, crap, now it's Tatum and Beal? Or no, you basically played the Celtics the same way. It doesn't change how you defend the Celtics. You still got two guys that you have to worry about. And yeah, maybe Beal commands like a little bit tighter defense. But Jaylen Brown is an all-star player who has gotten significantly better in each year he's been in the league. I am not just going to give up Jaylen Brown for Beal. It doesn't compute for me. Because I can at least justify with Jaylen, you can add a third player, that extra $13 million. It's not like a salary cap thing where you have an extra $13 million to spend. It's that extra $13 million. If it's on your books, I'd rather have that occupied by a useful bench player than one guy making $40 million. It's that $40 million that's going to get you. So yeah, today, if I'm picking teams, okay, you've got Jason Tatum. I'm taking Bradley Beal next. And then Jaylen Brown's after that. Today, at this moment. But tomorrow, by the end of the season, who knows? So I'm just not going in on Beal right now. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the assets. If you're trading Jaylen Brown, you better be getting like a Giannis type package. It's got to be like Jaylen and Marcus Smart and young players and picks to get disgruntled superstar that's like a clear top 5 guy. I'm not trading Jaylen Brown for Beal as much as I really do like Bradley Beal. It just doesn't. It's not enough of a step up. And frankly, I'm not sure over the life of their contracts how much longer it's going to be a step up. So that's my case for not giving up Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal. Up next, we'll flip it. I'll look at the other side and make the case. If we're going to have a strong debate, you got to know what the other side's going to say. And so I will look at the other side's argument. After I tell you about Rock Auto, talking about saving money and getting good value, Rock Auto is going to give you that value, because we know it's impossible for one of those strip malls in a whatever size building they have to have everything every car on the road needs. It's impossible. They're going to stock what they have. They're going to stock the most popular things. But if you're not driving the most popular cars, then who knows what you're going to get. So save the time, save the drive, save the annoyance of having to recite everything that you need to know about your car to a person behind the counter. Do it yourself at home. Use your phone, use a laptop, whatever. Enter that information into rockauto.com and you'll see an expansive database of everything that you want, no matter how complicated, no matter how simple. Something wipers, headlights, carpets, to some kind of technical thing that goes into the middle of that basically computer that runs your car now. If you know how to use that stuff, great, good for you. You'll find it at rockauto.com. I'm telling you, it's the place to go. It's going to save you a ton of money. People have saved hundreds of dollars. They've told me directly. I've used Rock Auto and I've saved hundreds of dollars on these things. So go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts that are available for your car or truck. When you do buy something, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to buy something, you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, because that's how they know we sent you. Please do that. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. So I've made my case pretty clear. I do not want to trade Jaylen Brown in a deal for Bradley Beal. As much as I think it'd be great to have Beal here, I think the goal is to have Beal as part of a trio, right? It's not about Tatum and Beal. It's Tatum, Brown, and Beal, and you figure it out. Now, I've already gone over how that can happen, but if Brad Stevens says, all right, we need to get Bradley Beal at all costs, and I think it's time to trade Jaylen Brown, here's why he would do it. It would be because Jason Tatum needs to be appeased. And if Jason Tatum isn't feeling Boston and they're afraid that Tatum has sent out some signals that, hey, I'm not feeling it here. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence. It's like, yeah, it's cool. It's whatever. It's fine for right now. If that's the case, then you say, all right, well, now we have to start catering to our superstar. And in the hierarchy of Tatum and Brown, Tatum's the number one, Brown's the 1A or 2, however you want to classify it. And so that would be why you start to build your team in a manner that caters to Jason Tatum. And so you trade Jaylen Brown, you bring in Bradley Beal, and you try to sell both of them on Boston, and you throw $40 million per year over 4 or 5 years. It'd have to be 4 years, but 4 years of 35% max. He's a 10-year player, and the Celtics would be able to do that after he played 1 year here. They could sell Tatum on sticking around because he and Beal would be playing together. And so Beal would start his contract 4 years, where Tatum would, that 4th year would be Tatum's option year. Now, again, keep in mind that at that point, Beal will be 32, and the hope is by then you have won a championship. If you haven't built a championship around those guys, then what's the next deal for Beal? It's not going to be a $40 million deal. You get into this messy situation, I think, by doing all of these things just to appease Jason Tatum. I don't think that this is the exact way to go, obviously. I'm not doing a great job selling this portion of the podcast. I just don't think that catering to the star at this level is really conducive to winning. I think the way you cater to Jason Tatum is building a team that contends. And if Tatum in 2 years, 3 years, if the Celtics are close to a champion or have won a championship, and then he still says, oh, but I really want to play with Bradley Beal, so I'm out, then you've done everything you can. They got his input on the coach. They hired a coach that he's cool with, that he agreed would be a good hire. They have done other little things to kind of help his friends, invites to training camp, whatever. Maybe they go out and get Javonte Green, like he mentioned on Instagram. Like maybe that's the way they make him happy. Bradley Beal's not his only friend out in the NBA, so maybe you get Javonte back on a minimum deal or something, and you reunite that crew. But the reason to trade Jaylen Brown for Beal is to say, we know that if we get Beal here, that Tatum is going to stay now for sure. And that's something that's so imperative to us that we have to do it. And so I don't think that it's necessary to do that. I don't think that's – I think that the Celtics can take that money and spend it in a different way. And the Evan Fournier signing, using that mid-level, finding quality players, finding depth. If you can get the third star to Boston, and maybe it's not Bradley Beal, maybe somehow, some way, because there's always a surprise, the third star is somebody else, and the Celtics start winning and win a championship. Is Tatum gonna be like, oh, but it wasn't Bradley Beal, so I'm out? No, he's gonna stick around and win championships. So you appease Tatum by building a winner. He knows that this is a business. He knows that he can't always dictate everybody that comes to town. He knows that Beal's gonna go do whatever he needs to do. And they hang out. They hang out on the road. They hang out back in St. Louis. They don't all have to play together. So I think that the Celtics, knowing the Celtics situation, knowing that the tax is important, knowing that by giving Beal that kind of contract, that's going to be that has to pay off and quickly, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the Celtics to spend money. But the ownership group, if they're looking at this team and saying, we'll spend for a championship contender, and you say, okay, here's Bradley Beal, we're going to take Jaylen Brown out, and we're going to pay Bradley Beal $40 million, does the ownership look at that and say, oh, well, we weren't a championship contender before, but now we are, so here, take all of our money? No, I don't think that changes anything. In fact, it probably hurts the Celtics' ability to spend a little bit. So if you feel that you need to cater to Tatum that much, then that's why you do the Brown deal. If you can go ahead and build a better team around Tatum and Brown, then you do that. And yeah, that does put added pressure on the team to actually build a winner around Tatum and Brown. Like the clock starts ticking. You got 2 years of Jaylen Brown. You better start winning. You better start going out there to win. So yeah, that doesn't change. That doesn't make everything easy. But I'd still rather have them try it with Jaylen Brown. But I will acknowledge that it's a little scary that Jaylen Brown has 2 more years, basically 3 more seasons on his contract. So we're saying next season and then 2 years after that. So there is a clock ticking on the Celtics for sure. And if Jaylen leaves, then that's a problem. So maybe they should be focusing on appeasing Jaylen Brown. We think about it from that perspective. Up next, why the trade for Bradley Beal is basically the only way that the Celtics are going to get him. Because signing him, people are talking about, hey, let's just sign him in free agency. No, you can, but no, probably not. I'll be talking about that after I tell you that BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Whatever you want to bet on, the Olympics now, Olympic basketball is running hot. You can go and bet on that. International sports, American sports, baseball, whatever. It's all available on BetOnline. So go ahead, use your laptop, use your mobile device, create your username, your password, and then enter the promo code LOCKED ON. That'll get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So once you do all that stuff and you use that promo code LOCKED ON and you make a deposit of $100, you'll get a $50 welcome bonus. So you're basically winning a bet without even placing a bet. That's how it works with the promo code LOCKED ON at BetOnline. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get into the action at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Please gamble responsibly. So I've made my case for not trading Jaylen Brown. I tried to look at the other side where they said, yeah, trade Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal. I didn't like that argument. You can clearly tell from how poorly I made that argument. I just don't see it making sense. Long term, I don't buy it. I can't buy it. So then some of you might be saying, John, why bother? He can opt out after this season. He can opt out. The Celtics can just sign him in free agency, right? Not really. They can. So technically, it's possible. Functionally, it's not. So the Celtics already have Tatum and Brown. I wrote this very extensively on Boston Sports Journal. So I would encourage you to go read all that because there's a lot of numbers. And I'm not going to go through every number here, but I'm going to give you the gist. But you can go read the piece on Boston Sports Journal. The projected salary cap for the 22-23 season is $115.7 million. That could go up, that could go down, but that's the projected one. If it goes up, great, that helps Boston. The Celtics have Tatum on the books for the 22-23 season at $30.3 million. Jaylen at 27.2-ish. Basically $57.5 million for those two players. That leaves approximately a little more than $58 million in cap space for the Celtics. Now, Bradley Beal opting out and coming to Boston, we would assume that he's going to take the full 10-year, 35% of the cap max, which is $40.5 million in the first year. $40.5 million. So you add that to Tatum and Brown's $57.5 million, and you got $98 million tied up in three players. You got about $17.5 million left. So if you can't build the rest of your team in 17.6, the exact number is like $17.6 million or so. If you can't build the rest of your team with that, then you're not going to have the cap space to sign Bradley Beal. Now, $17.5 million, basically, you've got to sign 9 guys with that kind of money. Well, how do you do that? So right away, you can tell that that's going to be tough. It's tougher when you think about Al Horford, because the crux of the argument here for people who say just sign him is that, yeah, Al Horford's non-guaranteed. So you just waive him and he's gone. But that's not true necessarily. He is on the books for, he has $14.5 million of his $26.5 million is guaranteed. So while the full $26.5 million is not guaranteed, $14.5 million is. So you can't just cut him. You have to trade him into somebody's cap space. So considering in this scenario that the Celtics would desperately need to shed salary, you can trade him with the first round pick from next year, assuming like you haven't made any other deals. You can use that first round pick because you're not going to sign him because you need that money to ship Al Horford off. So that's one way to save some money. There are team options. So this is how the Celtics are going to have to start to build their roster. Again, right now, only 3 people. So You can let Langford go, Nesmith go, Grant Williams go, but you're just letting these guys go. And while some of you might say, yeah, sure, let them go, these guys could be functional role players. Even if they're 8, 9, 10 on the roster, during the regular season, it's important to have an 8, a 9, and a 10 on the roster to take the pressure off your 1, 2, and 3 so they don't have to play 38 minutes in November, December. In the playoffs, those guys don't play. But through the long slog of a regular season, those guys play. And you need somebody functional in that 8, 9, 10 role so your starters don't have to carry the full load for 8 months. So you're letting those guys go. You can keep Peyton Pritchard. You can keep Nesmith. You're going to have to let Robert Williams go because at that point, if you still have him, he's going to be a restricted free agent. You make the qualifying offer, his cap hits $11 million. So we're talking about filling out the roster with 17 and a half. Well, this is just the cap hold, $11 million. That's not even the first year salary. Assuming that Robert Williams is playing well, he could command more than that. But let's just say that that's what he makes. Say he gets a first year $11 million. That's too much. That's your fourth guy. 4 guys now at over $100 million. You're running out of money. So without going through all of everything, you get the picture that it's impossible functionally to do this. Now, you could get rid of all of these guys and start signing minimum guys, and sure, you can try to convince ring chasers to come and be part of this team, but at that point, you've got nothing. You can try to sign and trade Robert Williams to bring back players, but who are you bringing back? And are those guys going to make enough to fill out the roster and keep your cap space? The other trick that they can use is you can say to Bradley Beal, sign a 1+1, make it $37 million or so, opt out of the second year, and then we'll use your non-bird rights, which basically allows the Celtics to pay 120% of the previous year's salary, and he can make the difference. And that'll give the Celtics an extra $3.5 million to play with. And hey, if the cap goes up a little bit and they can work some things around, maybe you can get an extra $4 million to work with. Great. But what does that get you? So now instead of spending $17 million on 9 spots, you've got $21 million for 9 spots. Big whoop. Point is, no matter what the Celtics do here, they can sign Bradley Beal, but they just destroy any level of depth. There's just no depth left on this team whatsoever. You got to hope Moses Brown is ready. You better hope that Aaron Neese is ready because those guys are both going to start on this team. And then it's a bunch of rookie guys and veteran minimum guys, and you can't build a team like that. It's impossible. It's just not possible. So, as one person put it to me on Twitter, you lose more assets by not trading for Bradley Beal. So, basically, after all of this analysis of what would it take, how can you get Bradley Beal, the final result for me is I just can't bring myself to say you trade Jaylen Brown. I cannot do it. I cannot do it. Some people can. I cannot. And you certainly can't sign him. So the only hope for getting Bradley Beal on this team is to convince him through back channels to demand a trade, to demand it only to Boston, and send the signals out, I'm not re-signing with anybody. I'm only re-signing with the Boston Celtics. It's the only way the Celtics are going to get him. And that's basically him saying, I really, really badly want to play with Jason Tatum. That's it. And it's not even a function of I want to keep Jaylen Brown. Like this is the only way to do it. It's the only way to make it work. Because even in that scenario, even if I was willing to trade Jaylen Brown, why? Why do it in that scenario? Because at that point you got to leverage. You don't trade Jaylen Brown. But this is I'm very pro. I getting Bradley Beal. I do think that a Tatum, Beal, Brown team could be really, really good and it could work and the fit would be fine. But I just don't see it happening. Because look, Beal still he still wants to win. He doesn't want to go to if he's going to go to a team, he wants to go to a team that's not going to be destroyed by him joining the team. What's the point of that? And depending on his loyalty to Washington, I don't know how much he's going to care about what Washington gets in return. If he cares what Washington gets in return, then that changes a lot of what's going on with this whole scenario too. And if he feels like going there is going to work, then he'll make it work. But he also knows that, hey, I can go to Golden State. I play with Steph and Clay and Draymond. Be a pretty good situation. You know, if he's cool with that, then if that's a scenario that he likes, then why not go do that? Why not? It'll be tough. Bottom line, it's going to be tough to get Bradley Beal. Hey, a reminder about that draft night show. It's me hosting, basically throwing over to Chad Ford and Rafael Barlow. That's my job. I'm passing to the big scorers, and those guys are going to give great analysis. I'm also going to be passing to our local hosts, our local experts, who are going to give you unparalleled access. It's going to be a great night. I'm flying to Dallas tomorrow, actually today by the time you hear this, on Tuesday. I'm flying to Dallas for a few days of prep for this show, and then we're going to do this thing on Thursday night. It means no Friday podcast for Locked On Celtics. I hope you understand that this is kind of a hell of an opportunity for me, so of course I'm going to take this opportunity, and it's going to cost the Friday podcast. But subscribe, because I'm still going daily otherwise, and be Monday through Friday, generally speaking, and definitely throughout the season, here on the podcast, here on YouTube if you're watching. So subscribe, comment, rate, review, share. Tell your friends that they should be listening to the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.